First and foremost, thank you all very much for allowing me here. I'm truly honored. And what I'm gonna do for the next, I think we mentioned 20 minutes, is just share a little journey I've taken, and hopefully out of that, we'll all figure out ways that we can all go beyond. And that's in essence why I'm here, is to kind of just share a little bit about my own personal story, and then leave you with 3 things that I think we can all do tomorrow. This is my favorite quote. Anyone that's been on my Facebook or follows me on Twitter, which hopefully by tomorrow is most of you, I'm a total sucker for a good quote, right? Like I have a quote of the day, and I'm the person that they invented successories for, and not the snarky little fake motivational ones. Like the original posters, like I love that stuff, and this is by far my favorite quote of all time. And the reason that I believe it should resonate, I think we have a lot of, raise your hand if you sales folks. Woo! A lot of B&C students. You don't have to be a genius. Education will not. Genius will not. You don't even have to be talented. To go beyond, all you have to do is be persistent. And I don't think I'm particularly talented. I'm not particularly smart. I'm not particularly well educated. But there is one thing that I am, and that's persistent. And that's really what going beyond is all about. So to truly understand me, you need to go back, and I need to introduce you to my dad. My dad was a China Marine at the end of World War II, and he left the military in 1949. And 2 weeks after he passed his exit physical, he was diagnosed with polio. Now, with Jonas Salk and everything, I think it was 1950, 51. My father was actually one of the last folks to get polio. And he was told he would never walk again. But in fact, he did. After a short stint in the hospital, he got up, he got on the crutches, he got off the crutches, and I'm actually one of 9 kids. Yeah, Irish Catholics in the house. But it was different. When we grew up, I literally do not have cognitive memory where I didn't have chores, where I wasn't cleaning up dishes or scrubbing toilets and my dad would inspect them. I didn't go to bed until my homework, I didn't watch TV until my homework was done. I didn't go out and play with my friends on Saturday till our chores were done. Well, what happened in 5th grade, I tried out for the junior varsity grammar school basketball team. Now, a little background, my brother was the most valuable player in the entire county at the All-Star team. So my older brother, 10 years older than me, was the best player in the entire county. And I got cut. So I came home, my dad said, "How did it go?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I got cut." This is back before all kids got trophies and everything. It was wonderful. Everyone's on the team. People got cut. So I said, "Dad, you know," the coach said to me, "Oh, you were the last guy to get cut. In fact, I think there's an extra uniform down the basement. If I find it, when I go to the equipment room, you'll be on the team." So my mom didn't run to the school. My dad didn't run to the school. My dad said to me, "You're going to go find that coach tomorrow," and asked me if he found that uniform. My father made me go back and find that coach every day for 10 days. And finally the coach said, "Practice is on Thursday. I think I found the extra uniform." I think he stitched it himself just to make me go away. But that was an important lesson for me. It was about persistence. It was about going beyond. I could have just said I'm cut and that was it. Here's the most important life lesson my father ever taught me. Let's go back to 1949. Originally they said, okay, you caught polio in the Marines, and the VA, the Veterans Administration, gave him a disability rating. And then they revoked it. And my father, every year, every 2 years, would pull out a folder. This is before computers, he wasn't even using a typewriter, and he would write a note asking them to revisit it. In 1999, 50 years later, he won his case, and the government owed him 50 years of back payment on a disability. That's going beyond. He never quit. And really that's, I think, the message that we're all seeing here today, is that you just don't quit. 50 years. He didn't give me any of the money, he kept it himself. Can anyone tell me who this quote's from? Not Jay-Z.
Kanye West. Will Smith.
Will Smith, right? A megastar. We see Will Smith as this good-looking guy. He's an action hero. He's the best rapper, right? He doesn't see himself that way. He sees himself as a fairly mediocre looking, mediocre rapper, mediocre actor. But he has one thing. I absolutely, positively will not stop until I win. He goes beyond. He sees himself as somebody that will not stop. And really that's what we've all been talking about the last 3 days. Decide that you're going to be better. Decide that you're going to go one step more than the competition. Decide you're just going to not stop at okay or even good. You're going to go beyond that, and that's Will Smith. True Grit. Who's seen this movie? Show of hands. The original. Who's it a movie about? Rooster Cogburn. It is not about John Wayne. It's not about Rooster Cogburn, who's an alcoholic, ex-sheriff. It's actually a story about a 16-year-old girl. A 16-year-old girl that was going to go find and kill her daddy's killer in the Old West. A 16-year-old girl. And everyone told her, go home, little girl. You can't do it. And she saw obstacles. She got kidnapped. She got beat up. Everyone told her she couldn't do it. True Grit is not about John Wayne. True Grit is about a 16-year-old girl that refused to take no. She went beyond, and she made a decision she was going to catch her daddy's killer, and that's exactly what she did. There's a psychologist, Dr. Angela Duckworth out of Penn, and she actually developed something called the Grit Scale. And it's a measure of high achievement. And it's once again, it's not about talent, it's not about IQ, it's not about education. It's about people deciding that they won't quit. They have a setback, they have a failure, they overcome them, they keep going, they keep driving. TED Talks is one of your content partners. I checked on that, so you guys can go check this out. It's about 18 minutes long, but I hope that most of the people, when they get to the end of that video, you realize, I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I don't need to be the most well-educated. I just need to decide that no matter what happens, I'm going to go beyond. I'm going to be better. I'm going to take that extra step. And those folks that do that, it's the #1 indicator of success. In fact, they do that at West Point. She started this study 5 years ago, and it's the #1 indicator of folks that will quit. That's one of those folks where you look to your left, look to your right, one of you three won't be here when you graduate. Those folks that score the highest on grit have the lowest probability of quitting West Point. Speaking of which, at 13 years old, I decided I wanted to go to West Point, and I spent the next 4 years of my life working towards that goal. Unfortunately, there were a few obstacles I had to overcome. Because when I showed up, I was 6'2", 127 pounds. I could do 17 push-ups. And when I went to the beach, people kicked sand in my face. Then I proceeded to get arrested on my Christmas break. And this is plebe year. This is back when you're really just an apprentice, right? You're learning how to be a good follower so you can be a good leader. I wasn't even really part of the Corps Cadets. I wasn't actually accepted. I had to actually go see a 3-star general in order to be able to stay there. That's a story for the bar later, because that's a whole 20-minute presentation of itself with Eisenhower and Bradley and folks staring down at me. But he let me stay, and I did end up graduating. But I got 35, 120, and 3, and I was the first freshman plebe, to get 35, 120, and 3. 35 demerits, 120 area tours, and 3 months restrictions. 120 area tours is where you go into a quad, you dress up in your full parade gear, and you march back and forth across maybe about 100 meters, back and forth, in between the barracks. You do that for an hour, that's 1 hour. I had 120 hours. It took me almost 9 months to complete that task. 3 months, I was allowed to class, official functions. No one was allowed to visit me in my room, and I couldn't visit anybody in their room. It was basically a polite invitation for me to go seek higher education somewhere else. They were basically telling me to leave. But I decided that I was not going to leave, and I went beyond. I decided I would hunker down, and for 9 months, this became my life. And I ended up graduating. Interesting enough, just last week, so they tried and kick me out. They spent 6 months trying to get rid of me. And just last week, I was invited to be a Distinguished Leader Series guest speaker. So now, 25 years later, they're asking me to come back and tell other cadets how to be successful. Don't get arrested would be my first bit of advice. Lincoln's back in the news, right, with the Golden Globes and the Academy Awards, not the vampire slayer, the actual president. Can anyone tell me how many failures are on this slide? Real quick. 10. This guy failed 10 times. In fact, if you read this slide, he was never successful. Businesses failed, elections failed. Right, but that's the difference. This guy goes down in history as one of the greatest presidents, one of the greatest leaders this world, not just America, has ever seen, because he was persistent. He went beyond. And that's what we're asking you folks to do in 2013 as we move forward. Ranger School. So I got to West Point and I decided I was going to be infantry, airborne, ranger. Airborne Rangers are the Army's equivalent of Navy SEALs. We just need a better PR department. And I get there, and we're starting to see a repeating theme. I failed the push-up test. So I failed. And they told me I had to go on to my unit. And I went and I saw the assignment officer. I said, I'm not going. I'm not leaving here until I go back to Ranger School. And they said, no, we're sending you on to your unit. And I said, no, I'm going back. And plenty of people would have taken no as an answer. I went back. I failed again in Florida. But the story I really want to tell is a story about Dahlonega, Georgia, which is the mountain phase. And part of the task that I had to complete, I had to go up a 50-foot sheer cliff with a couple of D-rings and a bit of rope. And you're only ever allowed to fail a task once. If you fail it a second time, you're kicked out. Ranger School, you have to be in the top 1% just to get admitted, and only 1 out of 3 graduates. So you have to be in the top 1% of all military just to get an invitation. They test you for a straight week just to allow you in, and then still only 1 out of 3 graduates. But you're only allowed to fail a test once. And I'm sitting on this cliff and I failed. I go back all the way to the bottom and I'm climbing back up. And we've all been to the gym, right? And my legs are shaking and my arms are shaking. I'm 5 feet from the top. And I was in total muscle fatigue. And the RI, the ranger instructor, says to me, "Get up here, Ranger!" And I yelled out at the top of my lungs, "I can't!" And then I dug deeper. And I made it to the top. And when I got to the top of that cliff, I said to myself, I'll never say I can't again. That's going beyond. So you don't say, I can't get that deal. Toyota's never going to buy it from me. P&G hates Hulu. That's not what you say. You decide and figure out a way. Don't remove can't from your dictionary. If there's an agency you're not getting along with, move around, figure it out. But you can never use the word I can't. That's what going beyond means. So I left the military in 1993. I went on and had what I would consider, a decent career. I started off at J&J, then I sold software for PTC. Most of the folks that know me from either Net Gravity back in the early days. And looking around this crowd, most of you were in grammar school when I was at Net Gravity. Went to Dynamic Logic, took that from 7 folks to 125, from a distant number 3 in the marketplace to the clear gold standard for advertising effectiveness, and we sold it off to Millward Brown. I was busy having a lot of fun at all the conferences. Julie was asking me earlier about the brand summit. I won't make it this time. So those other folks in the crowd have seen this pose, and give me another 10 minutes and you'll see it again. But then I got back from the MPA, the American Magazine Conference. I was at the El Conquistador in Puerto Rico, and I showed back up at my apartment in New York City, and there was a Western Union telegram telling me I had 30 days to report or a warrant would be put out for my arrest. Now keep in mind, I wasn't in the reserves, I wasn't in the National Guard. It had been 12 years. I had a decision to make. Was I going to fight this? And I call it the shaving principle, right? I had to look myself in the mirror and shave every morning, and I realized that even today, you folks have only heard me speaking for 10 minutes, and I've already talked about West Point and an airborne ranger and how proud I am. And my country called me and asked me for my help. And so I realized if I'm going to shave every day, I have to look myself in the mirror. What am I going to tell my kids, my grandkids? When my country called me, I I fought it, I didn't go. And in fact, 3 days before I reported, they did admit that they were mistaken and gave me the chance not to report, but I did. I ended up in special operations. I ended up in Baghdad in 2006. But I wasn't kicking down doors and chasing down bad guys. I was actually doing civil affairs, which is humanitarian aid, governance, right, the newly elected Iraqi government, economic development. Well, I'm an entrepreneur and a businessman with an MBA. Kids, you know, it's interesting because I saw conditions there that are nothing like I'd ever seen anywhere ever in my lifetime. It's 125 degrees Fahrenheit out, and a mother's trying to decide which of her kids gets to drink water today. Here you see Kraft. This is Kraft cheese in cans. It's happening. And kids are the same no matter where you go, right? They want to play, they want to be happy, and in fact, they want to learn. Parents are the same no matter where you go, right? They just want to put a roof over the head and food on the table and have their kids have a better life than they do. So here's another little quiz for the crew. What's in that little girl's hand? Slim Jim, that's right. So this teenager in New Jersey ships over Skittles and Starburst and Planters peanuts and Slim Jim. So I show up at this slum and I distribute all this stuff and the kids are tickled pink. And then my buddy walks over to me. Is there pork in that? Oh man. International incident. Army officer dupes children into eating pork. So I ran over to that little girl and I grabbed that Slim Jim. Chicken and pork, chicken and beef. So I was okay. It worked out all right. Once again, these kids are all around there. They love soccer. Well, September 9th, I was on a mission. Somebody had been shooting at some of my contractors. So I went out there to A, protect them, B, collect intelligence, and see if we couldn't chase down and take care of the bad guys. And I was standing in front of my Humvee, and we weren't getting an intelligence, so I said, let's get out of here. Boom! Loud explosion. I get thrown back about 10 feet. And as I was flying backward, I could see my boots had stayed actually on the ground, and the rest of my body was flying away from my boots. So in my head, I believed that I had actually triggered a roadside bomb, and it had cut me in half. And so I was laying on the ground, afraid to look down, right, because I'd go into shock, and I figured I had about 30 seconds left, right, and I just remember looking up and I'm like, damn, I just can't believe I'm going to die here. Well, my friend calls out to me, my buddy, who's a firefighter down in Austin, Texas. Any Texans in the house? Woo! I love Texas. That guy saved my life. And he says, Tom, can you walk at all? That was the greatest question I'd ever heard in my life, right? Because it meant if he was asking me if I could walk, I wasn't in half. He wouldn't have asked that question. So I said, hold on a second, let me throw smoke, right? And he's like, no, hold on. And I throw smoke because you don't want the sniper to shoot the next guy coming in to grab you, so you obscure the area with smoke. And here I was thinking I was a tough guy, wherewithal. I've just been shot and I'm smoking the area. Well, his side of the story is, I wasn't calling out to you, I was kneeling next to you, I'm trying to save your life, you threw smoke in my face. But they got me out of there, and I ended up at Walter Reed. I spent 8 months at Walter Reed. The bullet came in over my iliac crest, it shattered my left pelvis, tumbled through, shattered my sacrum, which is the base of your spine, that little triangle. Tumbled through, shattered my right pelvis. So I spent the first 3 months really basically on my back, waiting for the bones to kind of knit and heal. And like my father, the doctors told me I'd never walk again. I've since completed the Army 10-miler and 2 sprint triathlons. So they were wrong. A lot of fun visitors. Thank you. Yeah, I used to run 6-minute miles, now I run 12-minute miles, but I'm out there, right? People are walking faster than I'm running in these road races I'm in. It's not cool. So Walter Reed, a lot of different folks came by, and once again, you see I was in this high-speed, like robotic wheelchair for a while. And while I was there, a couple folks that you might be familiar with, Sean Finnegan, Paul Bremer, and Bill Flatley, got together and started the Tom Deierlein Foundation. I did not come up with the name. I am not that narcissistic. But the work that we're doing is really continuing our efforts that we had done when I was actually in Iraq. We help innocent, needy children. It doesn't matter where you stand politically or what your belief in the war is. I think there's one thing we all agree on, and that's innocent, needy kids need our help and deserve our help. They deserve school supplies. They deserve medical care. They deserve a helping hand. And hopefully we're changing the lives of one kid at a time, one family at a time, one village, and maybe we'll start making generational change. That's actually, let me look at these numbers, that's actually 200,000. And this year, just as you guys are going to do 1B, we're going to do 50. We'll have completed 50 life-saving surgeries thanks to everyone that's supported the Tom Deierlein Foundation. This is a story about a young Christian girl. There is actually a Christian community in Iraq, the Assyrians, if you understand anything about history. She was born with a heart defect, and all she wanted was a brand new dress for Easter. Well, she was operated on. She's, for 6 years in a row, we've done heart surgeries. We bring kids in from all over the Middle East to Jordan, and we operate on them. There is her with her brand new Easter dress. I never do it alone, right? And neither do you. When we talk about going beyond, that doesn't mean you're sitting at your desk figuring out ways that you can do this alone. Reach out to a client, reach out to a partner, reach out to a coworker. Sometimes you've gotten to where you're going to go, but you can't do it alone. Going beyond is having a network of people that can help you get better at what you're doing. And this is our network of partners. We have over a dozen now. These are folks that have supported us, just a sample of folks from the industry. Changing generations with proper medical care. One of our partners, Mission Restore, they go out and train orthopedic surgeons all over the world. We help support their work in Afghanistan. So once again, here I was, I come back to New York, I'm a disabled veteran, you know, walking with a cane, and I could have just collected my disability check and found myself a tiny little studio somewhere and gone away. But I decided that I wasn't going to let this stop me. I wasn't going to let my disabilities define who I was for the next 50 years, hopefully, maybe 30. So I went out and partnered up with some folks and started a new firm called ThunderCat Technology. We started right around the same time as Hulu, interestingly enough. And this past year, with 32 employees, our top line was $216 million. Last year, we were recognized by Forbes as one of America's most promising companies. And I was fortunate enough to be named one of the Entrepreneurs of the Year in the greater Washington area. So I've spent a little time sharing with you my journey and different ways that I've made different decisions in my life not to let obstacles, not to let multiple failures stop me. And so I want to leave you with three thoughts, three things that you can start doing tomorrow to go beyond. The first one, 1 hour a day. You guys have the hardest job in the industry, right? You need to know TV. You need to know digital. You need to know ad serving technologies. You need to know TV. You need to know smart TV. You need to know tablets. You need to know mobile. That's hard. But make a decision that you're going to spend 1 hour a day reading through the trades, and there shouldn't be a white paper you haven't read, a case study you haven't seen. There shouldn't be an article about you, your competitors, or one of your clients that you haven't read. It takes 1 hour a day. It's easy to do, but it's hard. It's easy to do, but it's hard. If you really want to go beyond, decide today that you're going to spend 1 hour a day. And if you see an article and you forward it to a client, they have great Q3 earnings, forward them with a little congratulatory note. Trust me, no one else does this. And within 2 years, you will be seen as an expert in the industry. If you spend 1 hour a day for 2 years, and if you're on the digital side, go ahead and subscribe to broadcast and cable. If you're from the TV side, go ahead and get the OMA. Go ahead and get the different stuff. You guys have a hard job, but decide to go beyond and be better at it by taking an hour a day and reading everything you can. SMART goals. Anyone? SMART, S-M-A-R-T? Specific, measurable, aligned, realistic, and timed or trackable. If you think about the story I've just told over the last 20 minutes, I would set a goal, I'd work hard, I'd achieve a goal. I'd set a goal, I'd work hard, I'd achieve a goal no matter what happened. Sit down with your manager, sit down with your boss, sit down with your coworkers, and set weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual SMART goals. Like there's a big one right in front of you guys right now that starts with a B. Specific, measurable, aligned, realistic, and timed. I talked very briefly about the grit scale. Please take 18 minutes out of your time sometime in the next week and go watch this video by Angela Duckworth. It should resonate with a lot of people in this audience because maybe you didn't go to a top 20 school, maybe you don't have an MBA, maybe you're not the swiftest boat in the race. But just know that going beyond is having grit and never, never, never quitting. I know that I'm here as a guest speaker, but Kevin has known me 15 years. I think, Julie, we decided it's been about a decade or 11. I'm not special, trust me. I am not special. Anyone can do this stuff. And I think that's why it's so cool you guys picked this theme. Because anyone can go beyond. Anyone can decide they're not going to quit. Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. What do he and I have in common? Anyone know? I wish I were.
Same net worth?
Cut from his basketball team. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. So he wasn't a natural talent. This is a guy that decided he was going to go beyond. He was going to work harder. He was going to outwork and be out persistent. Is that even a word? He just decided he was going to be better, and he never quit. He could have said, okay, basketball's not my sport. But he never quit. I'd like to thank you all for your time. That's my contact information about my foundation, my series. Bottom right, there I am. So I would like to invite a few folks up here. Here we go. GMO. Is Melissa still here? Melissa Grant, come on up. Andrea Dominguez, are you still here? Come on up. What I'd like to do is present each of you with a challenge coin, or what's also known as a commander's coin. And this is a history in the military that goes back all the way to World War I, where some rich kids from Yale and Princeton and Harvard dropped out of school and they went into the Air Corps and decided to be pilots. And one of their fathers minted a logo on a coin, a gold coin, and they gave them out to everyone in their unit. Well, this one pilot gets shot down over Germany, he gets captured, escapes, makes his way to the French resistance, and they're going to kill him because they think he's a spy. And in doing their search, they uncover the coin that he has, and the French guy says, I know these people. So instead of killing him, wine and cheese for everybody, party, party, he gets back to his unit and he says, I was this close to death. We all have to agree that we're always going to carry this coin with us. And that's the history of the military coin. The 82nd Airborne has one, the 101st, the Band of Brothers. The President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, has a coin. This particular coin is my coin from when I was deployed in Iraq. On the outside is the Special Operations Shield. Our call signs around the outside. My call sign was ThunderCat 6. On the back is the units we were deployed with, including the Band of Brothers that I mentioned, and the 9 districts that we had. This is not a gift. Let's go back to the original story, the challenge coin. What they all agreed to do was to carry it with them at all times. So what that means is if you're ever out and someone places their coin on a bar, you have 60 seconds to produce your coin. If not, you owe them a drink. If you do, in fact, as JP did, have your coin on you, you lose the challenge, and there it goes. So the 3 of you are going to be presented with this coin, and I want to thank you for having me as a guest here tonight. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
I'm a winner. I don't care what he says, I won something.